Hello everybody, my name is Cody and I'm here with the one and only...
Alex, that's me. Hello, welcome to the Alex and Cody show today.
It's Alex Rosenberg, the Doctor of Dance is what they call him in the biz.
Yep.
The Dance Doctor. He has a PhD in dance, specifically in the Zelda series and dance, and you can see his thesis up on our YouTube channel, in fact.
Yeah, it's the best thing I think I've ever made, actually.
So, if you haven't seen it, when Chugga Conroy did a Skyward Sword Let's Play a while back, Alex Rosenberg here was like, let me do a video about dance in the Zelda series and Fi and a bunch of other dancing characters, and let's try and replicate that with my friend in the dance studio and see how it goes.
Yep, it was really fun, and then I put it out and everyone's like, you missed like 3 of them, and they were right in my face, and I'm like, wow, okay, cool. But no, yeah, it was one of my favorite videos to actually do. It was a lot of work, a lot of research, but I think it worked really well, and even people who weren't, like, Zelda fans really enjoyed it and found it educational, which is a cool thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Validated my BFA in dance.
So, I'm here with the Doctor of Dance here to tell you about a video game that's about dance.
Oh yeah, that just happened today. The Nintendo Direct Indies presentation happened this morning, and one of the things that they announced was a spin-off of Crypt of the NecroDancer, and it was a Zelda spin-off of all things. What?
Yeah, so it's called Cadence of Hyrule, and it seems to be a direct sequel to Crypt of the NecroDancer, which, if you haven't played it, is a rhythm game where it's basically a roguelike or a roguelite or whatever you want to call it, the category. Basically, it's randomly generated dungeons and that kind of thing, and you go dancing through the world defeating monsters, and you can only move on the beat that's playing and that kind of thing. And it had a really interesting soundtrack, and there was actually a really good remix of a Zelda song, I think it was Tao Tao Heights maybe, in the trailer. So I'm looking forward to a lot of good remix Zelda music from this.
Yeah, I'm really excited that Nintendo's using some of the big IPs with indie devs, because I saw on Twitter someone being like, wait, does this mean that if they could give F-Zero to somebody that can do a good racer? Yo, that would be dope.
Yeah, or if they keep going down this path of just contacting random indie game developers, they can get the director of Stardew Valley or something and be like, Zelda farming! You never know what they'll do.
Oh my god. It would be basically the opening of Twilight Princess, but the whole game.
Yeah.
I hope you like goat herding, because that's all you get.
It's just wrestling goats and fishing so that a cat will go away.
And then claim credit for doing all the work that you did. It's the shadiest cat in the world.
So we've got a good lineup here today in the podcast. Coming up first, in fact, speaking of music, is Tingles Jingles, musical Easter eggs with Hebron, which is about Easter eggs found in Zelda music. So that should be interesting.
Yep, that title, Tingles Jingles, does not make me slightly uncomfortable, because my mind goes...
Doesn't make you tingle?
No, in a way, not the way I think it should.
Well, I hope that tingle can make you jingle in that segment, viewer, listener.
Yep, all right. After that, we are gonna go to Brian, who's gonna talk about his most wanted returning items, which there's a lot of ones that we haven't seen in a couple years, so that could be interesting.
Right, so items that just haven't been seen in a recent game, or maybe have only been seen in a handheld game or something. There's a lot of interesting, one-shot items. Twilight Princess had stuff like the spinner that, if they want to make that have a comeback, maybe they can organize an indie developer to make like a new Beyblade game or something, except it's Zelda.
Zelda Beyblade. I completely forgot about Beyblade, I'm not gonna lie.
So after that, we have community news, and it's always good to hear the news of the community.
Yep.
Here at Community News.
Yep, and we have Anne and Realm on this one, so it will be double the news. Or more people, I guess. After that, we are going to have Randy talk about Hyrule Away from Hyrule. All the instances of the Land of Hyrule in Zelda outside of the Zelda franchise. And there's surprisingly a lot of other titles that use the Zelda franchise, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, there's in fact one coming up very soon, so...
Yeah, this was kind of well-timed, oddly.
After that, we've got Realm's Realm, Overworlds and Hubs, Part 1 featuring Realm. That's more realms than he has years of his life, because he's young.
This again?
Look, it's funny. It's a funny joke. It's just gonna keep being funny for the next 5 years until he becomes like 19.
It just makes me feel old, Cody. I probably have more gray hairs than you, and you're older than me.
Look, you want to feel old? Let me help you feel old. Do you know, people who were born after the release of The Wind Waker in, what, like 2003? They're old enough to be driving now. They're like 16.
Ew. I hate it. I hate it.
People born after the release of Skyward Sword on the Nintendo Wii, currently about 8 years old, so they're old enough to start posting pretty soon on the Zelda Universe forums, so...
I hate it.
It's all happening.
I hate it. I'm so old.
Do you feel old?
I'm old. I feel like an old man. Old man Rosenberg, that's me. Next, our very own host of the show, Cody, is interviewing our lovely friend of the internet space, ProtonJon.
That's right. I need to collect them all. Last time I did Chugga Conroy's interview. This time it's ProtonJon. After that, there's only one more member of the Runaway Guys to interview, and then I'll have the full set.
You must interview the Tim.
The Tim, I'll get to that. So,
yep.
After that, we'll be responding to your feedback. We're big fans of feedback here in the Cody Zone, or the ZUCast, whatever you want to call it.
The Cody Zone? Excuse me?
The Cody Zone.
Is this what this podcast is gonna end up being?
Maybe.
Why do I suspect your returning item is a shovel?
Shovel, shovel is the shovel song. I'm good at songs.
I have flashbacks to your Twitch and ugh, God. And then we'll do we'll end, and then we'll shout out our social medias, basically.
Then we'll end, and then we'll have everyone's favorite segment, credits, with Eslo's Spirit.
Woo!
Yeah!
I'm so hyped.
I'm so hyped. And of course, as you know, if you've ever watched a Marvel movie, you need to stay until after the credits, because that's when the good stuff is.
Yeah, how are you gonna know what? Maybe you'll see a video of me and Cody eating shawarma in New York City, or something.
Right, and maybe you'll see like Howard the Duck, who knows? Maybe Howard the Duck is going to be a new spin-off game from Nintendo.
Hey Seth Green, hit us up please, we'll make that happen.
So, coming up now, the one and only Hebran with Tingles Jingles. That's Alex Rosenberg's favorite name for a segment. Tingles Jingles, Tingles Jingles, Tingles Jingles. Musical Easter eggs, that's his theme song.
Hello everyone and welcome to what is now officially called Tingle Jingles. Thanks by the way to everyone who participated in the poll I conducted for choosing the name. There was a little bit of debate about whether we should keep this one or another one, or if Tingle had anything to do with music, but it's my segment, I decide the name, you help me decide the name, so here it is. Welcome again to Tingle Jingles, and in this episode we're gonna discuss a bit about some Easter eggs found in the music from the Zelda series. So let's begin with, this one is from Ocarina of Time. The title screen, actually, there's a part with a little flute that is playing the sound from the recorder used in the first Zelda on the NES. But this sound actually comes from Super Mario Bros. 3, also on the NES. That is the sound also from the recorder in that game. So it's a little throwback to those games. Next up, we have A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS. This is a more recent one, but it has a nice little throwback to A Link to the Past, which is actually technically the prequel to this game, and also, as you may know, my favorite Zelda game of all time. A lot of people already know about this one. The theme from the last dungeon in the game actually contains a part that, when played backwards, it is the theme from the A Link to the Past Hyrule Castle. It's a nice little throwback to that game, and very symbolic of how Hyrule and Lorule work with each other, with Lorule being like the reverse or counterpart to Hyrule. Similar to this one, we have next Skyward Sword. This one is very common, very known. It is in the main theme of the game, that is the Ballad of the Goddess. Similar to the one in A Link Between Worlds, this theme also contains a part that, when played backwards, it reveals the Zelda's lullaby. We've known since A Link to the Past also, but it became very known from Ocarina of Time. So there's this little Easter egg also in Skyward Sword. Moving on to another game, we have now Majora's Mask. This is not exactly an Easter egg, but it's a nice little detail found within the music of this game. First off, we have Clock Town's theme. Now, when you listen to it, it might not sound so different, but each of the 3 days has its own little twist on the theme. And you note how with each day the theme becomes like a little more dark and somber, so as to reflect how the ambience changes as the moon creeps closer to the region of Termina. A nice little touch that goes very well with the theme of the game. Also within Majora's Mask, there is another hidden detail. Well, not exactly hidden, but it's a nice touch also. In each region, there are these 4 regions in North, South, West, and East. They all basically have the same melody, but it is played with different instruments and different tempos depending on the region to accommodate more to the setting of the place you are in currently. Next up, we have Link's Awakening on the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and this is a very common musical Easter egg found in not only Zelda games. Actually, I think this one is the only one that it is in, but it is also found in many games from Nintendo. Of course, I'm talking about Totaka's song, this little jingle composed by Kazumi Totaka, who managed to get it hidden in many games that he's worked on. This one is found not 1, but 3 times within the game. The first one is on Richard's villa, the little house that is filled with frogs. To activate this little Easter egg, you have to enter the house and wait for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Then the music will stop and Totaka's song will start playing. And after that, it will return to the original music. Now, another way to hear Totaka's song in Link's Awakening is in the Japanese version by setting your file name as Totakeke, which is a way that Kazumi Totaka is known, and also the name of a character if in another Nintendo franchise. This can also be done in the German version of the game by choosing the name Mois. I don't even know what that means, but that also triggers the song. And there is another instance of the theme in the game, but there is no way to really activate it. It is just within the data of the game. So that's it for Link's Awakening, which I'm also looking forward to see if they will keep this little Easter egg in the new Switch remake coming later this year. And also see if they keep all the versions, not only the one in Richard's house, but all the other methods of getting to the theme. And last up, we have the one with I think the most Easter eggs within its music. And ironically, because many people say there is really not much music in this game, and I'm talking about Breath of the Wild. The very first Easter egg we found in its music is right after the start of the game, when you reach the ruins of the Temple of Time. You know how there's this slow, calm piano music. This theme, when sped up, you can also actually hear the melody from the Temple of Time from Ocarina of Time. In this same fashion, there are the horse riding themes, the ones that you hear when you're riding a horse, obviously. And this may not sound like much, just like little piano solos or string ensembles. But same as with the Temple of Time theme, these themes, when sped up, you can actually hear Zelda's lullaby and the main theme from The Legend of Zelda, which actually I don't think that it is anywhere else in the game. So it's a nice little touch, nice detail to find the theme technically hidden in the game. And also in Breath of the Wild, and in a similar fashion to Majora's Mask themes for the 4 different regions, the 4 different bosses in this game, the Thunder Blight Ganon, Fire Blight Ganon, and whatever Blight Ganon, they have little reference to each other. And I've already talked about this in my boss music episode, about how each theme has basically the same melody, but it's interpreted in different ways with different instruments that relate to the region, like how the Gerudo theme, the the Thunderblight Ganon theme uses different instruments from the Middle East. So that's it for this episode. I mean, it's a little short one, but I think a little short on time also. So I wanted to get back into recording for the podcast. So here I am, and I'll be back with another very special episode in the next episode of the Zelda Universe podcast. So, and also I know I have missed some Easter eggs in other games of the series, so be sure to let me know. And you can do this by following me on Twitter at SCOM612, SKOM612. So be sure to follow me and let me know if you have any other Easter eggs you know about in the Zelda series music. And that's all from me. I've been Gibran Jacobo, and I will see you, or more like you will hear me, in the next episode.
Thanks, Hebran. That was Tingles Jingles, Tingles Jingles. I'm just saying that repeatedly because it makes Alex Rosenberg here uncomfortable.
Cody, why are you a thing? Just why?
So, no, I'm a big fan of Easter eggs. Speaking of Easter eggs, we're here with Brian now. Brian's coming up.
Oh boy.
We've got a big present for you. It's Brian.
Yep.
It's everyone's favorite segment host, except for Cody. It's Brian.
Well, so here's the thing. I have a love-hate relationship with this dude because, listen, I appreciate all the stuff he does. I like how he ranks items. I have a lot of qualms with what he said about Deku Nuts in our Ocarina of Time episode. Because, boy, you ain't using your Deku Nuts properly. They are the best item, and nobody uses them, and everybody should. And I will fight you on that, y'all. You can stun Goma. You can stun other enemies. You can literally take out a large chunk of the Baronade fight in Jabu, like, in a second with Deku Nuts. Don't sleep on them. They good.
That's right.
I'm still salty about that.
So,
Also, watch the randomizers. They're great.
remember, next time you play Ocarina of Time, remember those Deku Nuts. And, in fact,
Remember the nuts.
remember the nuts. That's the motto of Tingles Jingles.
Oh, God.
So,
What have I done?
and of course, the Deku Sticks, which are very popular with speedrunners who tend to use them to defeat Ganon.
They are. They are actually like the Master Sword power level as a kid, which is pretty good.
So, here we are with Brian's most wanted returning items.
Hey, listen, it's me, Brian Thomas, and during today's segment, I'm going to be talking about the items from different Zelda games that I would love to see make a triumphant return to the franchise. However, with the success of Breath of the Wild, I find it hard to imagine that Nintendo would want to go back to the old formula while moving forward with their new titles. So, the items that are coming up aren't your typical find in a dungeon, use it to defeat the boss type of items. No. These items are to be imagined as if they were already part of the Breath of the Wild Sheikah slate, and how they could be incorporated into the new formula of experimentation and exploration. First up is the Digging Mitts, or the Mole Mitts. Featured in the Minish Cap and Skyward Sword collectively, these gloves allowed players to dig through dirt and sand barriers in order to open sealed entrances. These items also allowed the player to discover items, blow up bombs, and hit switches all while underground. While playing previous games, it was easy to understand where and how to use the Mole Mitts, but if we could include their uses in a sequel, I wish to see them used in another way to explore and traverse puzzles throughout Hyrule. Imagine, instead of climbing up a cliff and gliding over some chers de frise, which are those wooden spike things for the people that don't speak French, in order to get to a shrine, some players could use the Mole Mitts to dig underground. Or, while you're underground, you could sneak up on an enemy camp and infiltrate from the inside. I would love to see some of the creative solutions players could come up with while having the ability to dig through Hyrule using the Mole Mitts. Next on the list is the Magic Cape from A Link to the Past. The Magic Cape rendered Link completely invisible to enemies as well as negating all damage done to Link. However, the downside was that it drained his magic meter very rapidly. However, in Breath of the Wild, the magic meter is non-existent, so the Magic Cape would have to have some sort of other limitation to prevent it from becoming too easy to play through the game. While using it to prevent damage to Link would have its very obvious usage, I'd be more interested in seeing how it could be used for more stealth type of scenarios in Breath of the Wild. Off the top of my head, I can think that the Magic Cape would have come in handy during the Yiga clan hideout portion of Breath of the Wild, or a quick way to infiltrate Gerudo Village without having to obtain the outfit first. The Magic Cape could be handy in combat scenarios as well. Imagine fighting a Lionel or a Guardian, either one, and you only have one heart left. In a last-ditch effort to equip the Magic Cape, they couldn't see you, you could run off and escape to safety. I think the Magic Cape would have been able to give players the option to tackle any given situation in a different, sort of unique type of way. So, the Sheikah Slate already has 2 different types of bombs, so why not a third? That's right, I would love to see the bomb chews make a comeback. Sure, they're a little weird and kind of wonky, and the controls can be a little difficult, but they can be used in a variety of different ways. They can hit far-off targets or explode boulders that are inconveniently located in hard-to-reach areas. That's if you can get the angle right. They can climb up walls, so you could set one up and have it run up the side of a cliff to explode an ore deposit, or they can be used to scout ahead to see what's around a corner or something. Setting a bomb chew down to look around corners or rolling it into a bokoblin camp would be a huge asset to Link's already impressive arsenal. Also, if the bomb chews acted similar to the Oracle games, they would be able to lock on to enemies, thus making them extremely versatile for players to experiment with. And finally, the last item on my list is the Goron Tunic. Now I know it may be cheating, it's not technically an item, it's a piece of equipment, but hear me out, and I know what you're thinking. There's already heat prevention armor in Breath of the Wild, so why would we need a Goron Tunic? Well, allow me to explain. Back in 2006, when the Wii first launched, Twilight Princess was the only game I was interested in at the time. Despite its flaws, the game had a bunch of memorable moments and introduced me to the Zora armor. I was so enthralled with its design and its amazing ability that I couldn't wait to discover what the Goron armor had in store for me. Unfortunately, the Goron armor doesn't exist and still hasn't made a return to the Zelda franchise. So, fast forward to 2017, Breath of the Wild had an amazing set of Zora armor. From the design, to the story arc, to the functionality, it was perfect. So, my hopeful optimism allowed me to believe that a Goron armor set was going to be part of the Breath of the Wild, just like the Zora armor. I thought it was going to have some sort of story arc, I thought it was going to be heat resistance, I thought it was going to have some sort of amazing traversal ability just like the Zora armor did, but here we are. Goron armorless. And the further we progress, the further and further the dream of having this beautifully designed, heat-resistant Goron armor gets further and further away. I would love to see what Nintendo could cook up and what it could look like, and possibly having the ability of the Goron mask of just rolling around Hyrule. I would love to be able to do that in a Breath of the Wild type of sequel that would have the Zora armor, Goron armor, and then everything else. And there you have it, folks, the items that I would personally love to see make a comeback into upcoming Zelda titles that would incorporate Breath of the Wild's new Zelda formula. I hope you all liked what you heard. Please let me know on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at itsamebt, and I will catch y'all next time on Hey Listen.
Thanks, Brian. I will somewhat forgive you a little bit for the Deku Nuts thing. Hey, Cody, I got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
What kind of items do you want to see in the next Zelda game?
Well, I am a big fan of the cane that turns people upside down, the spinner from Twilight Princess that you only get to use for a short period of time.
You mean Arbiter's Grounds in, like, no other place?
Yeah, look, Twilight Princess, I've made my complaints about Twilight Princess clear in the past. It has a lot of items and stuff that are there for that one dungeon and are never used again. Twilight Princess, not very good.
My particular item that I would love to see, I'd like to see bomb chews again. Because you really have to, like, be smart about where those are, and they can lead to way cooler puzzles, I think they could be cool. Especially if you can control them. That'd be fun.
Yeah, or if you could pet them. If there was like a Pokemon, in new Pokemon games, they've got the thing where you can go in and pet the Pokemon and feed them. You know, if you could just have a pet Bombchu, that would be nice. They are living creatures according to Majora's Mask.
Oh, that's true. That's true, I forgot about them. Also, on that note, I want Nintendo to add a pet doggo function. I still want them to patch that into Breath of the Wild, but it ain't gonna happen at this point.
Well, hopefully there'll be something to pet in Link's Awakening coming up.
This year.
Were there any doggos in Link's Awakening?
I don't remember. I think there were. To the wiki!
Link's Awakening dog. Yeah, there is. Dogs appear as mutts who roam Mabe Village in Link's Awakening. But they will attack Link in Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
Anyway, moving on. We're now going to transition over to Realm and Anne, talking about some news in the community and see what's been going on in the Zelda universe space.
Hello everyone, I am the Zelda Anne.
And I'm Realm.
And this is your Zelda Universe community news. Let's get started.
Mafia games are a favorite ZU pastime that cropped up several years ago, and they are still going strong. To get involved in these homebrewed, competitive roleplay games, check out the Community Central board where you'll find the pinned Mafia Information Station thread that has all the basic information you'll need to join in on the murdery fun. As of reporting, the latest game is Reservoir Cats, hosted by Aquamentus, and themed after Quentin Tarantino's early 90s heist movie, Reservoir Dogs.
Sounds like fun. When I last reported the community news, back in October, I mentioned that Silver was still part of the staff team despite no longer lording over any particular board. Well, Silver has stepped up to fill the turtle-shaped hole in the general gaming staff left by JP the Neurotic in February, joining existing mod Abyss Master and making sure the console wars don't spiral out of control.
Speaking of general gaming, ZU's general gamers spent the last few months deciding on the best game of 2018. The final round saw indie favorite Celeste in a fight with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and by a staggeringly close margin of 6-5, Smash Bros. Took ZU's Game of the Year 2018 crown. Thanks to everyone who voted throughout the tournament, and congrats to the developers of both Ultimate and Celeste.
It's awesome that an indie game got to the final round and only lost by a single vote. Anyway, let's take some time to celebrate March's ZUer of the month, True Edge 67. It is of no surprise that everyone has wonderful things to say about every newbie's senpai. For example, the ZU's resident Hyrule historian Linkle says, True is a wonderful, caring, and amazing human being with a heart of gold, and I consider him to be one of the closest friends I've made in the past year or two. Though perhaps not quite as much as either of us would have liked, he and I have talked fairly often, and there is always a feeling of trust and understanding when we're speaking together. I never have to worry about if I can find in him about something, and likewise, he knows he doesn't have to worry about me. I wholly believe True continues time and time to outdo himself daily, that he has definitely succeeded in contributing far more to this place in just one short year than I have in all 3.5 of mine. He has given so much more life to ZU than it even already had, and helped change and brighten so many lives that I really can't imagine any more what this place would be like without him.
Wow, that's some really high praise. As True's co-mod, I'd like to chime in here with my own thoughts on him. Now, I'm not really scripting this because I felt like that would be a little disingenuous, and I kind of wanted to just give my more candid thoughts. Basically, how I feel about True is that he's my role model. Ever since I've joined the site, True has been kind of exactly what I've wanted to be. He's been a wonderful mod, he's been incredibly helpful, and just all around one of the kindest people I've met on or off the site. And I really just hope that one day I can impact the site in even a fraction of the way that True has.
Wow, TrueEdge67 sounds like an amazing person. Hearing about him makes me want to get involved in the ZU forums, and I'm totally not just reading that off a script that I didn't write. Help me? Anyway, congratulations, True Edge, and we hope you enjoyed your month.
Indeed. Over in Modern Zelda, recent newbie Zero Origin has started a thread specifically to balance out the negative sentiment that has previously been floating around ZU about Breath of the Wild's Divine Beasts. Appropriately entitled the Divine Beast Appreciation thread, it's the perfect mountain atop which to proclaim your love for these sprawling, puzzling Magitech mechs. So go do that if you're a glass half full kind of person.
In the neighboring General Zelda board, a discussion began immediately following the March 20th announcement of Cadence of Hyrule, an upcoming rhythm roguelike Switch spin-off and crossover with Crypt of the NecroDancer. If you are excited to get your groove on to some 8-bit Zelda jams, join in on the discussion.
Over in my home clan of Nehru, a bunch of us are celebrating the first anniversary of the Great Miku Invasion with yet another Miku Invasion. We've donned Hatsune Miku-themed avatars and SIG banners to declare our appreciation for the Vocaloid character and voice. We invite any and all ZUers, even non-Nehrulians, to join in on the invasion.
That's an interesting event, but okay. The Creative Corner had some contests going on in January and February, as always. First off, the Visual Arts Contest did not receive enough entries to proceed with the voting phase, which I find disappointing to hear, given my love for visual art. If you don't believe me, check out my Zelda Universe TV stream, Colors of the Wind Waker, every Monday and Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on Twitch. I think that artists of ZU should rally around contest creator Lady Sunshine and beg her to bring the art contest back so that everyone can see some amazing themed artwork.
I wonder if they'd accept digital art. Huh? Oh, yeah, right. The January/February writing contest finally ended in March. The prompt was Hidden Beneath the Ocean, and almost every single entry was really dark and gloomy for some reason. As the queen of dark and gloomy, Ruki naturally won the contest with her story, Return to the Depths. Returning entrant and first-time runner-up Fallen Darkheart got, well, runner-up with her depressing entry Taken. Thanks to all who entered and or voted in the contest. The April contest is underway, and the prompt is The Words Left Unspoken. Yeah, that definitely sounds like Ruki's idea to me. There wasn't a contest in March because Eslo Spirit was particularly busy with something. And do you know anything about that?
Actually, I do. And in personal news, all of us here at the ZUBC would like to wish sincere congratulations to our executive producer, Eden, otherwise known as Eslo Spirit, who has been accepted into their graduate school program of choice. They will be studying library and information science, which I didn't even know was a thing, but cool. What? Oh, I get it. Sorry, folks. Eslo is outside the recording booth right now, looking over the frame of their glasses and apparently shushing me. They are merely practicing an important skill for being a librarian.
Stop shushing us, by the way. We can't record the news in silence. Anyway, that's really cool. So, I recently reached my 1-year milestone as a member of the ZU forums, and I just wanted to say a few words. A lot can happen, and has happened in just a year. A year ago, I'd never have imagined that I'd be so involved in this community, or any for that matter. In just a year, I've become a moderator and joined the podcast. I started an art thread and an ARG. I've participated in a few invasions. But none of that is really why I've stuck around, and that honor goes to the people. The wonderful ZU staff, the listeners of the podcast, and most importantly, my friends, to our some ZU staff. Every day I meet someone new and get to connect with someone I haven't talked to for a while. You guys make the site what it is. ZU has already gotten me through a couple of tough places, and I'm always going to be grateful for that. And I hope that if I haven't yet, I'll be able to in the future do the same for one of you. Now, I don't want to hijack this community news, but I really just wanted to thank all of you because each of every one of you, even if we've never even met, is important and means the world to me. Much love to all of you, and I hope that I can continue to serve this site for many more years to come.
Wow, Realm, that was really sweet. Finally, in Cody news, Forums admin Pietro posted a poll last month titled, "Who is Cody Davies?" that asked you whether you consider Cody to be the Jay-Z of Minecraft or the Kramer of the internet. As of reporting, 19 people have made their opinion on this vital issue known, and 68% think that Cody is the Kramer of the internet. I have no words.
Me neither, to be honest, so let's just leave it at that. Before we go, I'd like to announce that forum admins Pietro and Ty will be guests on our next ZUcast episode for a very special interview. If there isn't one already, there will soon be a thread in Community Central where you can post questions to be asked of the admins for that interview, so please do get involved.
Alrighty, and if you have any personal and or forums related news you want to be heard on the next community news, please send a private message to either Realm Wings or Eslo Spirit. But not me, because I'm not on the forums. Yeah, I'm not gonna say yet.
But Anne...
Sorry, Realm.
Fine. I'm Realm.
And I am the Zelda Anne.
And this has been the Community News,
where the Triforce continually shines.
Till next time.
Thanks, Realm Wings, and Anne, and Cody, and Eslo Spirit, and Kelly, our editor. Oh, wait, this isn't the credits.
And Elias.
No, you'll have to wait until the credits. The credits are coming up. Don't worry, we will have credits for you. I know it's everyone's.
Don't turn this off. Don't turn this off. Oh no. Oh god.
Don't turn us off. The credits are coming.
Yep.
But what we have coming up next is Hyrule Away from Hyrule. Hyrule Away from Zelda. This is Randy's segment. He's going to talk about Hyrule in other games. So this is a very relevant topic because we're about to see Hyrule as envisioned by the developers of Crypt of the NecroDancer.
Yep, this wasn't planned, but here we are.
So yeah, that's looking good. I'm thinking that there could be some very interesting stuff there. I'm not sure how much creative freedom they're going to get in terms of designing enemies, or if we're going to see old enemies or remixes of old enemies. We did see for a second in the trailer a boss monster and it was holding a big electric guitar. But it would be interesting to see if there are other traditional Zelda enemies that have been spiced up.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the trailer again right now, and I've already seen variations of Stalfos and like Choo-Choos and Poes that are very much within the style of Crypt, but are very much Zelda enemies. So I don't think they're gonna be like, oh, you must have all of these things, otherwise, bleh. But I do think that it is going to be, you know, able to use the Zelda stuff while still being what it was, which I really like.
We'll probably hear more about Cadence of Hyrule in the next podcast. Again, this segment, you may think it's odd to have a segment that's like Hyrule Away from Hyrule and then not mention the new announcement, but again, like just now, this announcement just showed up, so he'll have something ready for you next time potentially.
Yeah, so obviously we need to talk about it.
So yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about. So thanks, Randy. Take it away.
Hello and welcome back to another segment of Hyrule Away from Hyrule. With this segment, I, your lovable host Randy Marr, like to examine how the games we adore are translated into other games and media. In previous segments, I've talked about Zelda references in World of Warcraft and how the style of our ever-changing cast can be seen elsewhere. But what about the land itself? We've all come to know and love Hyrule almost as a second home. I mean, that's probably why you're listening to a podcast about Zelda, I'd imagine. What does Hyrule look like away from Hyrule? If the world we've come to know and love is our second home, what do these summer homes look like? It's true for any Zelda fan that there is one constant of Hyrule. It's inconsistent. Sometimes frustratingly so. Twilight Princess featured a flipped version of its own world, because why not? Yes, I know it's for gameplay reasons, but it just shows kind of how flexible this world has to be for the sake of gameplay. Ultimately, I think that's a good thing that the gameplay comes first and the geography comes second, but it does make charting the history of this world horribly inconsistent. Then they put out an official timeline, and if that didn't make you give up, well, then you're either stronger will or simply more stubborn than I am. The first thing I'd like to talk about real quick is just how much these game worlds inspire us. Right now I'm looking at a Minecraft landscape that has been repurposed into an exact replica of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past Overworld. It's quite astonishing to look at, as it gives you some physical 3D perspective to a world we all know and love very well. Honestly, I'd love to just kind of dive into this world myself, but I don't think I have the time to build it, and I don't really know how to import it. That said, though, kind of suddenly thinking about Dragon Quest builders and how great a Legend of Zelda builders would be. Someone should pitch that. But fan creations aren't the only place to find our promised lands outside of Zelda. Another amazing Nintendo series, Super Smash Bros., has been representing our world with interesting and detail-ridden stages. Series creator Masahiro Sakurai is no stranger to insane amounts of references and tiny nods in the series he borrows for his stages. In the original Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64, we saw the top of Hyrule Castle repurposed for the first Zelda-inspired stage of the series. Most of the stages in the original game were sort of floating representations of the game worlds they were based on, but Hyrule Castle was actually designed after the Hyrule Castle featured in the Ocarina of Time. Looking at them side by side, all Sakurai did was add a few platforms to the central tower, close a small gap on the left side, and turn the right tower cap into a sort of hut. Otherwise, it's identical. Even the window placements are nearly one-for-one to match. And to add a little reference in there, the spinning tornado that shows up as a hazard is based on the same tornado that would sweep the original NES Link between dungeon entrances when played. In Melee, we received two stages from our favorite franchise, Temple and Great Bay. Temple is interesting because it's not based on any specific Zelda game. Between the overall design aesthetic and the music, it is clearly meant to evoke the great temples of Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, but it's not any one temple. In fact, it appears to be kind of a merger of several. Also, there aren't any sky temples in the original Legend of Zelda 2. Is this the first hint of a sky-based society in The Legend of Zelda? There's some Hylian writing along the stage platforms as well, and once you translate that, it's basically Japanese for Smash Brothers, so that's fun. Great Bay, another stage, is based on the location in Majora's Mask of the same name. While some details, like the Turtle Island, had to be rearranged for gameplay, it is nearly identical to the actual location. In fact, if you manage to tilt the camera off to one side, you can see a heart piece hanging out in a cliff where that heart piece would be in Majora's Mask. There's also 6 islands that form a puzzle in another alcove. One interesting detail, however, remains hidden from most people. There is content under the water of the stage. Due to the camera, you never see under the water, but with a little braking tech, you can actually reveal that there's rocks and a recreation of the sunken beach, as seen in the Great Bay. In Smash Bros. Brawl for Nintendo Wii, a couple more stages were added. The Bridge of Eldin represented Twilight Princess's release, while the pirate ship was added to represent Wind Waker. The Bridge of Eldin looks like it was lifted right out of Twilight Princess, with a cool nod to the broken bridge puzzle you have to deal with in the original game. Pirate Ship is a little less specific, although it is designed after Tetra's ship in Wind Waker, complete with barrel catapult. Originally, the background for that stage was fairly empty, with only an occasional tiny island way out in the distance and some bokoblin lookouts firing at the ship. In Smash Ultimate, they added a lot more detailed islands in the background, so that really just kind of helped give me more of that Wind Waker feel and less of an empty ocean. Gerudo Valley, Spirit Tracks, and Skyloft were all added in the 3DS Wii U Smash Bros., and these are actually some of my favorite Zelda stages. Gerudo Valley is a cool cross-section of the bridge that leads from Hyrule Field to Gerudo Fortress. The bridge can break, letting people fall to their doom in the river below, and the twin Rova sisters show up to cast fire or ice on half of the stage. Adds a cool shifting dynamic that you're not always fighting in the same section of the stage. In Spirit Tracks, you enjoy traveling the grasslands of New Hyrule on the back of a speeding train. It's constantly under attack and switching out real cars, so it's incredibly dynamic. Not a favorite for people who like easy stages. Not tournament legal. Not by a long shot. And Skyloft is another tourism stage. These stages take central locations like Delfino Plaza and have you fly around it on various platforms, periodically dropping you off at random locales. Skyloft is a pretty sizey town, and there were plenty of cool little nooks and crannies that made for some great places to have a showdown before being whisked away again. The most recent stage in Smash Bros. Is the Great Plateau Tower. While a bit claustrophobic, it does offer an amazing view of Breath of the Wild Hyrule. There are some details that I would have liked to see in the stage, though. In my playthrough, Divine Beast Vasrudania was one of the first things I saw crawling around Death Mountain, and he sort of haunted me for the first good chunk of the game. Every time I felt like I'd look around for something, I'd see him out of the corner of my eye just kind of lurking on a volcano. Maybe some day-night shifting would have been cool, but especially if there was a blood moon periodically, just for fun. It doesn't actually do anything, it just looks all creepy and fun. But Smash Bros. Is not the only place where you'll find Hyrule locales represented. In Hyrule Warriors, you travel across several known locations, as well as some of the clearly referencing the ideas rather than specific locations. Stages like Twilight Field, Skyloft, Forbidden Fortress, those are all meant to replicate the lands that they came from. Although, again, gameplay you gotta mix it up a bit. But they're usually kind of stitched together with other parts of the game to sort of give it both a cohesive and an interesting gameplay layout. But Faron Woods and Solidus Cave don't specifically exist anywhere in a Zelda game. Sure, Faron is the name of the wooded regions, but it never had a treetop fortress. My favorite of these is the Temple of the Sacred Sword, which is striking a beautiful balance between representing the Temple of Time while being its own version of a castle that never really existed around the Master Sword. And if the stage doesn't make that clear in its design, the theme song for it features a heavy Gregorian chanting chorus over the track reminiscent of the Song of Time without being the Song of Time. There are also a lot of cool original ideas for Hyrule Warriors, like the Temple of Souls. It's a small castle surrounded by a thorny rose garden built as a temple of worship to the hero and all of his incarnations through time. If you weren't sure about Sia's unhealthy infatuation with Link, this would have been an especially big red flag. It's fun to explore new areas of Hyrule, especially in the minds of people who don't make the official titles, kind of see what ideas they have. In a strange, interesting turn of DLC announcements back from Mario Kart 8, The Legend of Zelda received a lot of love, including a new Hyrule Circuit stage. The stage plays out as a cute course set in a castle town and part of Hyrule Field. Mario Kart's coins become rupees, piranha plants become Deku Babas, and all of the sound effects are swapped for more familiar ones from the Zelda series. Nothing in that stage acted as a direct reference to any locations. For example, there was never any Master Sword chamber at the end of a spiraling staircase, but you do still kind of get the traditional Hyrule feel. Although there is also Death Mountain in the background, but yeah, it's a background. Similarly, and perhaps more strangely, was the Hyrule featured in Sonic and the Lost World. This free DLC features a stage where Sonic can wander around a Hyrule Field proxy dressed as the hero and collecting rupees instead of rings. The thing that makes this Hyrule interesting is it's not any specific Hyrule, it's sort of a best of Hyrule amalgam. In the distance you can see the very specific Hyrule Castle from Twilight Princess, but the world is all lit up and colorful like Ocarina of Time. While running through a particular part of the stage, an actual hero, Link, flies by on the back of a Loftwing, which isn't a thing in the Zelda games, historically, until long before Hyrule Kingdom is founded. It's a fun way to see all the things that the developers of the Sonic and the Lost World loved about Zelda, and being that it's its own kind of little fan project, they can get away with just picking up the things they liked. Finally, I'd like to talk about the Hyrule featured in Nintendo Land's The Legend of Zelda Battle Quest. Like Mario Kart 8, this features a sort of idea of Hyrule rather than any specific locations. What's most interesting about this is the art style. Most of Nintendo Land features a very handcrafted world, not unlike Kirby's Epic Yarn or Yoshi's Story. But they make it feel like an amusement park and less like a Hyrule simulator, which always brings up a specific question I've had. Why doesn't Nintendo experiment more with The Legend of Zelda in its presentation? Yes, I can hear you screaming at me through time that each Zelda has a unique art style and makes it stand out against its contemporaries. But I'm thinking more along the lines of Yoshi's Crafted World or Paper Mario. For a landscape that seems perfectly malleable to fit any purpose, Hyrule has never really been done over as something other than a fresh coat of paint. To go along with this, trying different genres for Zelda has a lot of potential. How has the series never seen a more traditional turn-based RPG style game, but Mario has like 30. Even Sonic has one. Of course, we saw how ridiculous everyone acted when they tried to give Metroid a unique art style for technical purposes, so I guess I can understand that Nintendo has to be more precious of what it would consider its top-tier IPs, rather than being more adventurous, which honestly is a shame. When I originally started writing this, I didn't have the Link's Awakening remake to think about, so credit where credit is due. The whole world looks like it's set in a plastic figurine toy set that you might have had as a child. And honestly, it's amazing. Some people say it doesn't fit the dark and gritty tone of Link's Awakening, but I think those people forgot that at one point your quest is to find a cute bow to put on a pet chain chomp. Part of what made that game work is how lively and cartoonish everything was for like 90% of that game. It just made the twist way more heartrending when it finally came about and really just struck home. With Breath of the Wild, I feel like we got our ultimate Hyrule. And while the nature of the world is its ability to shift for whatever reason, I do think there's more to be explored in realms other than Hyrule. I've turned over every single rock in this kingdom, so let's see something like another Termina or Cahulan. But if we do have to see Hyrule again, I'd like to see what new twists can be given to it, especially if it's from people outside the usual Legend of Zelda development teams, as it's always just nice to kind of get out of your own head and see what else is out there. I'd like to thank you again for joining another segment of Hyrule Away from Hyrule. Thank you and have a good day.
Thanks, Randy. There's honestly like so many different games that pay homage to Zelda and the Land of Hyrule, and I think it's really cool to just see the amount of stuff that Zelda's influenced and been a part of, even when it's not really an official title. Even stuff like Skyrim is got some Zelda references and influences, like with the Switch port, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, in general, Zelda has had a big influence on gaming in general, so it's interesting to see when they reference it directly, I guess. But there's also just a lot of Zelda in just a lot of other video games, because people who are currently in their mid-30s and they're sort of successful in their game design field and that kind of thing, they grew up playing, you know, when they were 5 years old, stuff like the original Mario Brothers and the original Legend of Zelda, and I think that's why we're seeing so many indie platformers and that kind of thing that are very reminiscent of a Zelda game.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool to see, because then you kind of see all these new creative takes on it. And as someone that really appreciates the time put into that, I think it's awesome.
So, coming up, Realms Realm, Overworlds and Hubs Part 1. That's right, you've got a series coming up here.
Oh boy.
There's a second part to Overworlds and Hubs because, of course, Overworlds and Hubs are a big part of the Zelda series. You could say that it connects them all together.
Wow!
So, there you go, except for in, like, Spirit Tracks, where they were like, what if we didn't have an overworld and instead people went on trains to the next section?
What if we took all the good parts and replaced them with trains?
Yay! What could go wrong?
Woo! Choo-choo! Anyway, we will let Realm take it from here.
Hey everyone, Realm here, and today I'm here to talk about something that's often, if it's done right, taken for granted by the player, being the hub/overworld. The connective tissue of nearly every game, the hub world, as I'll refer to it from here on out, can range from being a small area from which you can access other isolated areas, to a larger area through which you can actually travel to those areas, but we'll get to those details a little later. Since this is a big subject, and since I intend to discuss almost every applicable game, I'm going to have to split this up into two parts, working backwards. So today we're going to cover Breath of the Wild, A Link Between Worlds, Skyward Sword, Spirit Tracks, Twilight Princess, and The Wind Waker. I'm going to skip Four Swords Adventures, Phantom Hourglass, and the Minish Cap, because I haven't played them, or in the case of the Minish Cap, not enough, and thus don't feel qualified to discuss them, as well as Triforce Heroes and the original Four Swords, because both have more of a level system and whose hubs are either non-existent or effectively a glorified menu screen. Now, a disclaimer. This isn't exactly a ranking of the hubs. I didn't think that'd be especially appropriate, mainly because each of the several types, which I'm going to discuss later, does something unique that isn't really better than any other way of doing the job of a hub. Something that's going to be a bit of a topic of discussion in nearly every game is the question of what really is a hub/overworld. And before you ask, yes, they are effectively the same, at least in my opinion, and in the opinion of Wikipedia, where both are defined as areas from which levels or sub-areas are accessed. However, there is a difference, at least in my opinion, between the two, being that an overworld is much larger and featuring little centralization in important locations scattered throughout, whereas a hub is smaller, often with more condensed locales. Now, this is by no means a scientific explanation of the two, mostly based on my own conjecture, and a game designer could certainly do this more justice than I can, but you're stuck with me and you'll just have to live with that. If you're in 5th grade, by the way, yes, when you're a professional like me, you are allowed to use Wikipedia as a source. Anyway, based on this definition, a hub or overworld is hard to define in Zelda, a series that, at least on paper, doesn't use levels or areas easily distinguishable from a hub or overworld. While Zelda 2 and Skyward Sword both have very clearly defined overworlds and hubs respectively, most other games aren't that clear. And so, because of this, in each segment I'll explain exactly why I think what I chose qualifies as a hub or overworld, which one I think it is, and how effective I think it is at that job. So, with all of that out of the way, let's get to it. Now, Breath of the Wild is an especially interesting starting point because, in a sense, while it initially may appear that there is no hub in Breath of the Wild, every part of the game is its hub. Every area in the game is a jumping off point to get to another. That said though, it's not as if this game doesn't have a hub. It does, or to be more precise, 15 of them. In line with Breath of the Wild's decentralized game design, the Sheikah Towers each act as their own little mini-hub, a place where you can scout out your next destination and even get an aerial head start in getting there. Now, while shrines and towns, namely Hateno, could both also be characterized as being sorts of hubs, neither really offer, aside from some specific shrines, jumping off points for exploration, and are more often the end goal of that exploration. When you go to Hateno Village, after having bought or sold or died whatever you came to buy or sell or die, you're usually just going to warp away, back to whatever you're really doing, and probably not leave on foot or horseback from the village. None of the villages are really in especially advantageous positions for exploration, usually hemmed in by rock walls, mountains, or the sea, and while the secluded, hidden nature of the villages makes sense in the context of Breath of the Wild's story, it makes them destinations rather than starting points. Towers, on the other hand, offer survey of near entire areas, showing you an idea of what you could find, and sometimes even a peek of what's beyond. Despite their lack of any real adventuring commodities, I still, for the reasons laid out earlier, think that they are hubs. I think it's highly fitting that Breath of the Wild, a game of unfettered exploration, offers such freedom even in quote-unquote hub areas. And it is, while not a system that can work for any game, one perfectly tailored to Breath of the Wild's world and spirit, and is arguably one of the best in the series. On to A Link Between Worlds. This game certainly has an overworld, and specifically a style of overworld we'll see a lot more in Part 2 as we get onto Link's Awakening and other earlier titles. Initially, I thought about putting the entire map of the game under the banner of Overworld, but decided against it for a few reasons, choosing instead to only include field areas, so basically, if you're following along with a map, the light green ones. This is because these are the only areas with free and easy movement, and also because they connect all of the areas I've decided are non-Overworld. I excluded Death Mountain, the Eastern Ruins, and the desert because each, while still technically on the overworld map, is in itself a bit of a level, with a very straight or few-pronged path with a single destination, and, unlike the overworld, not an area with any reason to traverse after having unlocked the warp point at the top. Which brings us to an interesting point: warp points. Why, you might ask, do two games featuring similar warp systems have completely different classifications, with one not even recognizing the warp points? The answer is size. In Breath of the Wild, if you don't have a lot of time on your hands, or even if you're just playing through at a relatively normal pace, you're going to be warping a lot. If you don't, the world is just so vast that it's going to take, relatively speaking, quite a bit of time to reach your destination. Now, don't get me wrong, Breath of the Wild's world is gorgeous and a blast to adventure through, but there simply isn't always time to walk across it a few times every time you need a couple of region-specific materials for a quest. In A Link Between Worlds, on the other hand, everything in the overworld area is never more than a few screens away, and thanks to how slow warping is, from calling Irene to talking to her to the game loading and then some more talking, it's often just more practical to walk, making the warping mechanic a much less important factor here. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't mention Laurel here, and that's because, in terms of weather vane locations as well as overworld to non-overworld disconnect, it is identical to Hyrule. Overall, I'd say, while not doing anything crazy special, A Link Between Worlds has a solid overworld that does its job well. Now onto the one people are going to be mad about, Skyward Sword. Now, let's get this out of the way quickly. I'm a Skyward Sword fan. It's probably a lot to do with the fact that I spent several years of my life as a younger person playing and obsessing over it. I remember the absolute wonder of playing the demo at a Kentucky Best Buy, and while that may not seem exciting, it's one of my fondest memories. That said though, I do recognize its flaws, but honestly, I don't think the hub is one of them. Now, on a surface level, I love Skyloft. Even on a deeper level, as an isolated area, I love Skyloft. Nearly everyone who's played Skyward Sword would agree that Skyloft is the best, most fleshed out, most interesting area in the game. It, alongside the sky at large, is filled to the brim with nooks and crannies to explore, new side quests to do, new minigames to play, new things to upgrade. It's a wonderful area, not just within the context of Skyward Sword, but within the greater context of the series as a whole. And so, I know this is going to be unpopular with a lot of people, but I find Skyloft to be a highly effective hub and something that betters the pacing of the game. From what I've found through talking to people as well as watching YouTube videos and reading articles on the subject, people's main complaint about Skyward Sword that's relevant to today's discussion is the constant returns to Skyloft are boring and pointless, acting as just more filler and buffering between areas. That, however, I'd like to dispute. Now, like Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword is a game premised around the exploration of the unknown, and while this is more in spirit and less in practice in Skyward Sword, it is one of the overarching themes of the game. The game has 3 main areas: Faerun, Eldin, and Lanayru. Each area contains 2 dungeons, and after completing the first of each, you'll have to travel to Skyloft before you're allowed to go to the next. Many people see this as being a slow, pointless time filler, but I actually think it fits perfectly in the game. Each time you return to Skyloft early in the game, you feel like you really need to prepare for the unknown. Skyward Sword's story is based on rediscovering the surface world, an area unseen by Hylians for hundreds if not thousands of years, and so I think the obligatory Skyloft visit is a perfect way to break up the constant exploration. You can see the new sights, complete side quests, open up goddess chests you've unlocked, and prepare for the coming journey. Now, the effectiveness of these portions is lessened after the first playthrough, and they do become sluggish after a few, and that's certainly a big flaw, but overall, I'd say Skyloft does its job very well. Now we're on to Spirit Tracks and its overworld. Now, I'm not going to spend that much time on this one, since I've already discussed it at length in my dedicated Spirit Tracks segment, but I would like to talk a little bit more about why I think it's good, but kinda disappointing. In said segment, I talked about how I think the world is a good puzzle-like travel, and I still think that, but I also explained that it kind of needs self-imposed rules or a side quest to truly become fun. Its biggest issue, in my opinion, is that the main train mechanics are basically never used, especially if you just play straight through the story, which is a shame because despite their simplicity, they're really pretty fun. If I had to explain this overworld in just a couple of words, it'd probably be wasted potential. And while this isn't what this segment is about, I'd love to see the game style returned to capitalize on this potential. Anyway, I'd say that it does its job fine, but it really doesn't do anything great on its own. Here's another divisive one: Twilight Princess. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I am a staunch defender of nearly every aspect of Twilight Princess to the very end. There are, however, some things that even I can't defend, and one of those things is Twilight Princess's overworld. The overworld of Twilight Princess is, in my opinion, while an attempt at something resembling Breath of the Wild, a bloated, pointless vastness with no true purpose. Sure, there are things in there like bugs or something, I don't know. It takes the well-working, single moderately sized field of Ocarina of Time, that we'll be discussing at length next episode, and arbitrarily expands it without really expanding the content within it or the areas it branches into. This forced grandeur isn't an issue with Twilight Princess exclusively to its overworld fields, but this is certainly where it becomes most pronounced and subsequently most detrimental to gameplay and navigation. Its several interconnected fields are often difficult to navigate, and really just a lot of open space with rarely any real purpose. It could have worked the same, if not better, with a single field with sub-areas radiating off of it, as is done in Ocarina of Time. I keep talking about Ocarina of Time, and I know this is about Twilight Princess, but I think it's important because so many problems with Twilight Princess stem from its place as an Ocarina of Time follow-up. I think that in many cases, but in this one specifically, Twilight Princess is to Ocarina of Time what the architecture of the Nazis was to that of Rome. A pointlessly over-the-top, bloated version of the original simply for the sake of being so and being able to say how big it was. Taking something functional and believing that simply more of that functional thing is bound to create more function, when in actuality, it dilutes and twists the purpose of the original to the point where it performs the opposite purpose. And that's not to say that I think Twilight Princess is terrible for this, but I think the game fell short of its aspirations. And some would say the conclusion of this is that, since the game was unable to do what it set out to do, it should have never been made, but I think that's a little ridiculous. We would have never had Breath of the Wild's leaping strides had we not first had Twilight Princess's stumbling steps. And so, I think that you can appreciate what Twilight Princess tries to do, while also recognizing its shortcomings. And I think that's something we can all work on to be able to do. Interestingly, I think that the Wind Waker did this idea of grandeur and overworld design a lot better and a lot earlier. I think that this is mostly because it had the opportunity to do a lot more of its own thing. Of course, as with any game, it built off its predecessors, but I think that without the looming condition of it being a follow-up to Ocarina of Time, it was able to overcome problems and be designed in a way that didn't have to be building off of Ocarina, and that carries directly into its handling of its overworld. The Wind Waker masterfully makes its overworld seem massive, but not empty. There's always more to do and see, even in the areas you've already been. There's a real joy in coming up on a brand new island for the first time and wondering just what you might see. Sea travel is good in the original, but is perfection in HD with the Swift Sail, and it's honestly fun just to be sailing. I think that's the mark of a good mechanic, it being fun simply in itself, and sailing definitely meets that. And the design is just perfection. Every time of day is gorgeous, and even out on the flat open sea. The gulls flying alongside, even the enemies, just adds to this perfectly crafted overworld. It's truly one of the best in the series and in gaming as a whole. Well, that's the end of part 1 of an analysis of hubs and overworlds in the Legend of Zelda series. I'm going to save a more contemplative outro for the end of the series, but make sure to tune in next month for the other half, or I guess a little more than half, of the Zelda games. I'm the ever-present Realmwings for the ZUBC, signing out.
Thanks, Realm, for your realm. I hope to see some more realms in the future.
Yep, I thought it was actually really fascinating because there was a lot of stuff that you don't really think of as a hub, like Skyloft, for example. But when you really think about it, you're just like, oh yeah, I went back and forth all the time into Skyloft, and it's like, yeah, that would constitute a hub world. It's pretty cool. I really liked it.
Good job, Realm.
Yay! I'll give you a solid 2 claps.
Wow, there you go. 2 claps from famous media critic Alex Rosenberg.
Yep.
He is, in fact, our media director here at Zelda Universe. That's his title.
That is my title. That means that pretty much everything that you see and hear has to technically go through me.
That's right. Everything that you see and hear, not just on Zelda Universe, but everything you see and hear, filters through the Alex Rosenberg first.
If it did, there'd be a lot less YouTube controversy, because as soon as I see it, I'd be like, you putting that down? Nah.
So, last time on the podcast, I interviewed Chugga A. Conroy.
Yep.
And this time, I'm interviewing another member of the famous Runaway Guys, which is ProtonJon. I've met ProtonJon a couple of times. He's come to E3 and he's come to PAX.
Yep, I'll be seeing him next week.
What he was famous for back in the day, back in 2010 or so, was he was a pioneer in basically Super Mario Maker, except before it was released.
ROM hacks.
The reason Super Mario Maker appeared, I think, has a lot to do with the fact that there was a huge community for it.
Yeah, there was. We had stuff like Kaizo, and there were actual, editors that were made that used the in-game assets to create custom stuff. And it was really cool, and a lot of it was kind of, insanely difficult. And John was one of the, very few people that did all of that consistently.
And he has done some Zelda content on the aforementioned Runaway Guys, which, if you didn't know what that is, it's a collaborative YouTube channel between Chugga Conroy, ProtonJon, and Nintendo Capri Sun. If in this interview are mentioned Emil or Tim, Emil means Chugga Conroy and Tim is Nintendo Capri Sun. I think we might go back and forth a little bit in terms of using people's real names and their usernames. But ProtonJon's easy to remember. His real name's John.
Yep.
And he's a ProtonJon, so...
And why? You'll find out in this interview.
There you go, more exclusive scoops here on the ZUCast. Hello everyone, my name's Cody, and I'm here with ProtonJon. Hello.
Hello.
You're part of the Runaway Guys, which is 3 of you. There's the one and only Chugga Conroy, there's Nintendo Capri Sun, and then there's you.
Yep.
And you all sort of have different specialties. What would you say is your field of video games that you are the best at?
everything.
Everything.
Not sports. I can't do sports. Like, I can't do simulation sports, and maybe not RTSs, but most everything else.
Because I sort of associate you with Ninja Gaiden or these kinds of difficult platformers.
A lot of people associate me with, like, difficult platformers. Yeah, that makes sense.
The Runaway guys, when did that start?
We started talking about it in 2010, around, like, I think October, November, and then we met up in January 2011 to do the first recordings when we did Mario Party 1.
So the Runaway guys, I guess, is the main content you're doing on YouTube at the moment, but you used to sort of have a regular YouTube channel, but it seems like you're one of the people who's sort of most adapted to moving over to Twitch. I think you've got about 200,000 YouTube subscribers, but when was the last time you were regularly a YouTuber, would you say?
Yeah, aside from TRG, I wouldn't really say my main focus is on YouTube anymore. My own personal channel probably hasn't had an update in over a year. But, like, I stream 3 times a week at least over on Twitch. Twitch.tv/ProtonJon.
And how's that doing in terms of followers, subscribers, average view counts? Like, how are you going with that?
I would say, honestly, pretty good, all things considered. Let me just see here. Let me load up my dashboard. Got about 72,000 followers right now on Twitch, and our stream average is about 1,800 viewers a night. But I stream super late, so unfortunately it kind of skews the numbers a lot.
So do you think there's a reason why... Are you a natural fit for Twitch? I was previously talking to Chugga Conroy, and he was saying, I love being a YouTuber, I love editing, I love the production process. But for you, it seems like you've sort of naturally adapted to Twitch. Is there a reason for that? Is there a style to your playing or commentating that makes it work like that?
I just kind of thrive off spontaneity, and that's really what Twitch is. It's you just throwing yourself into a room full of people and then just being like, all right, I'm gonna entertain you for the next, 5 hours. Figure that out as we go. All right, let's go. So, I don't know. I just, because, there's no editing to worry about.
Yeah.
So there's just no, dirty, gritty work like that. I mean, there's pre-production stuff you can do off-stream. I've had to do plenty of that. But, when the show starts, it's just, you just go. You have people to play off of. You can get co-coms. You can just play off the chat itself. You can play off the games. It's just, you get near instantaneous feedback versus, posting a video and then seeing people post the same correction in the comments over and over despite having responded to 10 of them.
So your username is ProtonJon, but your YouTube username is ProtonJon SA, I believe.
Yeah, because ProtonJon was taken, so...
That's a reference to the fact that you started at Something Awful, is that right?
Correct.
Has that influenced, I guess, what you thought Let's Plays were when you created Let's Plays?
Oh, definitely. When I started doing Let's Plays because of the Something Awful forums, that's more or less where they came from. And I did them in kind of that style, and then I kind of just started floating into my own style for a bit, a mix of informative and goofy, and then it just, when I moved over here, I just kind of floated in between that as well. I do miss doing produced content like that from time to time, but there's just something about the ability to just sit down and go with Twitch that I severely didn't have on YouTube and just kind of regretted, honestly, if that makes sense. There's just something about it that feels so much more liberating and so much more my style.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, and I think Twitch has a lot of positives as a platform. I've had that experience where it's people in the comment sections think they're the first person to be making that comment.
Yup.
Yeah, and they're the 350th, so it's a problem with the internet in general. I know people get mad about Twitter as well because they post something and they just keep getting the same responses in the tweets being like, well, actually. Yeah, no, Twitch is great fun. You do have an ongoing produced series, the Superman 64 series. What made you decide to do something like that?
I won/lost a bet.
Do you have a fascination with, I guess, bad games? Is that something that made you interested in something like Superman 64?
I don't know if it's a fascination with bad games. I just like being able to find the playability out of terrible games. I don't like games being able to defeat the player. I like being able to defeat the game, if that makes sense. So when someone tells me a game is unplayable because of a control scheme or just it's generally bad level design, I kind of take it as a personal challenge. Be like, all right, well, I'm about to prove you wrong. Give me that controller.
The sort of Mario ROM hack stuff Is that something that if you'd done it in the modern day, that would have been a Twitch kind of thing? Was that you doing... That was very interactive, I guess, in terms of people were sending you content and you were playing it and responding to it and that kind of thing?
Well, see, now it's different because there's Mario Maker. So really, Mario Maker would just be what that is at this point. So yeah, it probably would just be like a more online setup. I know people who do who used to at least, do daily Mario Maker videos and just do all right, here's a map someone sent in. We're just going to try to do this for half an hour and just see where it goes, stuff like that. There's still room for it on YouTube, perfectly fine. But I feel yeah, just being given something to do on Twitch, just taking them on the fly is also a good way to do it. And honestly, if I was just getting into it now, that's what I would have done if I was still in that mindset of still enjoying it.
So what were your thoughts on Super Mario Maker?
I thought it was honestly a really smart idea. I'm surprised they didn't try to do something like that sooner, because the ROM hacking scene existed almost a decade at least before good ROM hacking, that is. Yeah. Before Mario Maker came out. Actual hacking of Mario goes back to the 80s and 90s, but proper Lunar Magic, actual level editors and stuff like that would have been around the mid 2000s.
And were you able to fully enjoy Mario Maker, or were you burnt out from all your years of playing bad Mario levels?
I had some flashbacks, if that's the question you're asking. I definitely had some flashbacks.
I do think it's smart, the way that Mario Maker made it, so you have to complete your own level before you can submit it, because I feel there's some levels that came out of Lunar Magic or whatever that
were terrible.
So, on a completely different topic, why ProtonJon?
High school nickname.
High school nickname? Were you a sciencey person?
Well, no. So when I was a kid, I used to really like Proto Man and all the Mega Man characters. So I used to just call myself Proto Man online. And then in I think it was a grade 9 science class, one of my friends was like, wait a minute. We were learning about protons and neutrons and all that. And a friend looks at me and goes wait a minute. Protons, Proto Man, it's ProtonJon. And that, honestly, we laughed, but I hated the nickname for the longest time. People used to say it just to bother me in high school.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated and moved to Alberta for university, I needed to figure out an Xbox Live username. And I was like, you know what? That nickname was actually not that bad. So I just started using it then.
So on the topic of Zelda, this is Zelda Universe, in fact.
What?
What would you say are your top 3 Zelda games? What do you look for in a Zelda game?
I look for amazing cutscenes, so that's why all my answers are the CDI Zeldas. No, I'm kidding. Number 3 is probably Link to the Past. Number 2 is probably Majora's Mask, although I haven't gone back to that game in ages. And I would say my most favorite is probably Link's Awakening.
So A Link to the Past, I guess first off, I think is worth discussing because I just watched a Let's Play on the Runaway Guys channel of A Link to the Past.
What? No, that. That.
And I have to say that maybe Chugga A. Conroy does not share all of your opinions on whether A Link to the Past is in the top 3 Zelda games.
I think Mr. A. Conroy may also not be the target market for that game.
Would you recommend it to people, I guess I'm asking, who started with something like Ocarina of Time, they've been playing 3D games? Would you say, oh, A Link to the Past, that's a real good one? Or do you think that your nostalgia or a certain way that people played back in the Super Nintendo days is something that sort of drives its popularity?
I think it's such a double-edged sword right now. Because here's the thing. Now, when we went through this with Emil, he struggled real hard because he grew up in the 3D era, and there's a significant difference between the games. The 2D games and the 3D games play very differently and expect a lot more and a lot different things out of you. And I feel the thing that Emil never really got down until near the end of the playthrough was combat. He always seemed to kind of struggle with what combat required of you, and he was always taking hits that he shouldn't have.
I guess that's interesting in this sense that Chugga Conroy is of the trio, the one who doesn't have much experience with anything in the pre-Nintendo 64 era.
Yeah, that's very much the case. He just, he started gaming on the N64, basically.
That's what I find interesting. One of the things I find interesting about the channel is the sort of generational gaps, I guess.
It has been an interesting mechanic to try to get used to, how each kind of generation that we kind of grew up in. I'm the Super Nintendo era, despite, growing up with an NES. Tim is very much the Nintendo era, and Emil is the N64 era. So we've all got these strengths and weaknesses on what we do and don't play and what we're kind of used to. But it has made it interesting to go back and be like, hey, have you played this one? And then getting like a yes or a no from someone. Like Emil hasn't played through Mega Man X, which is like one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. I haven't played through Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which is one of his favorite GameCube games. Like just things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim hasn't played through like Pokemon Blue until I think he did some LP stuff on it before. Like just like we're all like missing things that people be like, oh, I'm amazed you haven't played that. And it's just not where our lives lined up.
Yeah, and I guess that's the case with all sorts of people. You get people together in a room and there's things that you think, oh, everyone's seen Star Wars, everyone's seen The Godfather, everyone's seen all these classics that we reference all the time, but actually a bunch of people just haven't. So it's an interesting premise for a channel. I like those. I mean, my favorite's still the Wheel of Fortune kind of stuff, where there's just things going on.
Yeah, I can't imagine why.
But my second favorite is single-person playthroughs of something they haven't played while the other two give snide remarks. So what did you think about the Link's Awakening announcement for a remake on the Switch?
I was kind of surprised, because if I was thinking any Zelda game was going to get a remake, I would have thought Zelda 2.
Yeah, Zelda 2 is definitely one that is, I guess, the most in need of a remake. I mean, that's not a particularly controversial opinion in the Zelda community.
No, not really.
There are people who are like, oh, I love Zelda 2, but they tend to be people who loved Contra, or people who just grew up in the NES era and they're like, oh, Zelda 2's not that hard. But I can guarantee you sit Emil down in front of Zelda 2 and tell him to complete it and you'll have a fun time.
I can guarantee he would not have a fun time. I can also say that about Zelda 1, although he said he's played through that, or a bunch of it. But no, like, I felt like Link's Awakening, by then, they kind of had the formula down, so I didn't really feel like it would have gotten a remake, if that makes sense.
And it's already had one.
Yeah, technically with DX it got a pseudo remake, yeah.
So what are the things about Link's Awakening that make it your favorite?
I think this might speak more to me as a streamer in person than anything else, but there were a lot of glitches in Link's Awakening that I really liked. My favorite one was the one where as you start scrolling the screen, you bring up the map and then bring it back down, and then you've warped to the other end of the screen you were about to enter. So you could get off screen, like out of dungeons numerous times and get warped to other places. So it was fun figuring out where the game would send you and how like easy it was to break.
Yeah, well, that's something I find fascinating about games for the original Game Boy, where the cartridges were like, oh yeah, we've got like 32 kilobytes of space. How are we going to fit an 8-hour game on here? Did you have any thoughts about the graphical style of the Link's Awakening remake?
I think it's going to have the same issue that Wind Waker had, where when it comes out, people are going to hate it, and then like a game or two down the road, we're going to be like, oh no, that was actually really good.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to take a bit we need to get more of it right now. It needs to be refined a little bit more. We need to see where it's going to go. Because a lot of the people I saw were just very negative about it in a way. They were just like, oh no, this looks too cartoony, too kiddie. Why are they doing this? Meanwhile, all I could think of was like, well, this seems like an evolution of the Link Between Worlds style. So I can kind of see why they went for it. But it's definitely more cartoony, more bobbleheady.
Yeah, and I've heard comparisons to the Link's Awakening, the photos that you could take with the printer attachment.
Yeah, honestly, it reminded me of that a lot too.
So, yeah, and Link's Awakening, I think that will be an interesting one to look at. Is there anything in particular that you're like, oh, I hope they can fix this or tweak this, or that the remake will change? Like, for example, in Ocarina of Time, they updated the UI was one of the major things that people really liked. Just like the pause menu, not putting on the iron boots and unpausing and then taking off the iron boots and unpausing. What do you think could be some easy tweaks, I guess, to Link's Awakening?
I kind of hope they keep the way Link's Awakening worked, where that you could put the sword in either hand if you wanted, or just not have the sword at all.
Yeah.
So I hope they still give you free control reign over that. I would love them to bring back the warp glitch, but I know they would never do that on purpose. Maybe... So at some point in Link's Awakening, you get Bow Wow, which is a chain chomp that you can bring around as a pet, and you need to get that into the second dungeon. Like, he needs to eat like some flowers, or she, rather. I just realized it's a she. So I would love if you could just keep that for the whole game without having to glitch, and like B, that the control scheme for it was a bit better. Like, basically you were dependent on its AI to actually do the work for you, and sometimes it just wouldn't based on your positioning. So I would like if you could kind of use it more like a directional attack with like the other thumbstick.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So there's been a lot of controversy over the direction of the Zelda series lately. There's arguments keep breaking out in our Twitter comments about, is Breath of the Wild a real Zelda game, etc.
Oh my god. Ugh.
So what are your thoughts on this whole situation with Breath of the Wild?
Who cares? If a series is not allowed to evolve, then it deserves to die. Let a series evolve and try different things. It still has some of the same tropes, they just pushed it in different ways. It still has dungeons, although they're different. It still has, like, items you find, just nowhere near as many. It just has, like, a lot of other changes as well. I don't know, I feel like the whole argument, is it a true Zelda game, is kind of stupid. Because, like, yeah, like, they wanted to try something different, and they succeeded.
Right, and for someone who would have played the old NES sort of Zelda games, Zelda did make a bunch of changes. The Zelda 1 to Zelda 2, Zelda 2 to A Link to the Past, and A Link to the Past Ocarina of Time, you know, that kept some things, but in other ways it was a huge revolutionary transformation.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that it's pretty normal for Zelda to change, just not in the last 15 years or so.
We're at a point where, like, technological jumps aren't going to be as big anymore.
Yeah.
So, like, the impact of going from, like, 2D to 3D or even 8-bit to 16-bit is not going to be there anymore. So they have to find different ways to kind of mix things up. That's why Skyward Sword had the motion control swords. That's why it had more of a cell shading kind of look to it.
Yeah.
Like a more cartoony kind of look to it. But, like, you can only go so far with just changing the way things look. So they were like, okay, well, let's try something else. Let's try actually making the gameplay different. Let's try making it open world instead of just Zelda's equivalent of an open world, like true open world, I guess. And I think it was a good idea. Do I think all the Zelda games will be like, should or will be like that? No. They're never going to do them all like that. That would had to be way more taxing than any other Zelda game they've developed at this point. And besides, we're like, even in this era, we've still got Link Between Worlds. We're getting the Link's Awakening remake. We're still getting, like, classic style Zelda games. I feel like there's room to have both. I just feel like you're not going to get, like, we're at what? Like one Zelda game a system right now, unless there's a spinoff, or if they go crazy like they did on the Wii U and put like 3 of them on there. Yeah, no, like, I feel like there's room to kind of have a more traditional one and a Breath of the Wild style one. I wouldn't be surprised if the next Zelda game was just a mishmash of the two. Like, instead of having, was it 100 shrines, maybe tone it down to like 50, and then have like 10 of them be like more deep dungeon dives where you need to find items to kind of like keep moving through it. It wouldn't surprise me if they just mishmashed them for the next game.
All right, well, thanks for talking to us.
No worries.
And have fun on Twitch.
I will. 'Cause it's my job.
Yay.
Yeah.
Man, Cody, you do pretty solid interviews. Thank you, John, for letting our very own Cody interview you for a bit. It was very fun. I would like to point out that Cody knows pretty much everybody in the world, including the Runaway Guys, to the point where I think in our last podcast episode, Emil called you the Kramer of the internet, which I'll be honest, I don't think there is a more accurate description of who you are than the Kramer of the internet, which I think is very fitting. But it was very, very good. And if you want to find more ProtonJon, you can find him at twitch.tv/ProtonJon. He's cool. Go follow him.
Yeah, or his YouTube channel at youtube.com/ProtonJonSA, which is where you can find his ongoing Superman 64 Let's Play, where he documents every bug in Superman 64, which has been a long-running series, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I love that series. It's so good. He's the reason why I own 2 copies of Superman 64.
That's just sad.
Well, one of them doesn't work. So I use one for aesthetics and one for game.
Well, you could say that neither of them work.
I mean, yeah.
Next up, we've got some feedback. We do have some feedback this time, so we're going to have the segment. I'm very excited. So,
yes.
By the way, if you wanted to write in with feedback, that's podcast@zeldauniverse.net. Send in some feedback, or just comment on, if you're on the YouTube video version of this, feel free to comment and we'll read some of that out as well.
Yes, or add us on Twitter, which we'll talk about later. But our first piece of feedback is from Malia, who is actually one of the former producers of our original podcast.
Malia or Leah, or she's gone by some usernames over the years, but she was a former producer and host and all of that of the ZUCast back in the sort of 2009 to 2012 kind of era. So it's good that she came along and listened to this new one and gave us some feedback.
Yep, she gave some pretty decent ones. She loved our last other host, Kelly, which I agree. Kelly was so good, and I was basically, our meeting after the podcast episode went out was basically me going, I am so proud. And yes, we will be having her on again for a host, and I'm so excited.
We had a pre-planning meeting basically for the podcast, like what are we going to do? And me and Kelly had such good interaction during the call that I was like, this is going to be good for an episode. We'll make good hosts for an episode, and it turned out well.
No, yeah, it did, and I was actually the one that brought her on the team, because when I became media director, I needed more Zelda news editors, and so I brought her on. And she kind of became a really great everything, which is awesome, and I'm really excited that she is now a host as well. I think it's cool.
So what feedback has she got for us?
So she actually had a lot for you, Cody.
Yeah, well, that's not a surprise because I think I'm the one that she knows and is able to give feedback on how I'm doing comparatively to, how I usually do.
Yep, mostly just because you tend to drag all your jokes into the ground.
I don't do that. I do. Do that.
You do. How many times did you do the sand of the Gerudo Desert joke?
I don't know, but it's more times than Realm Wings is years old.
And our point has been validated. She basically just said, drop the punchline, get out. But there was a good vibe. She really loved the spirit flute stuff, which if you haven't seen the episode on YouTube from the last time, you need to. There are some amazing edits that are actually part of the video that you would miss if you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you're getting your podcast in audio form. So you should definitely check out the YouTube version.
Yeah, to be clear, you're not missing much throughout most of it. Like, for the most part, it's just like an image there and we've uploaded it to YouTube.
And basically cosmetic. It's basically that.
But we have some jokes in there. So if you are listening to the iTunes version, you're not missing on, like...
content?
We're not playing footage or anything on there, but...
it's just visual gags.
That's also Kelly. Along with being the host, she is the head editor, and so Kelly made some funny jokes there for the YouTube version, so good job again on that, Kelly.
Yep, she really liked the pacing of a lot of stuff. She loved Zelda fashion, and then was very happy about all the other stuff. So the editing is super strong. She really enjoyed it. There were just some tiny little thing, but otherwise, she really, really thought it was solid, which is great. Also, Spirit Track she liked as well.
Yeah, so thanks for the feedback. It's very good. She said she would give feedback so that I wouldn't sing a horrible feedback song.
That's true. And you didn't. So, here we are.
Yep. I have not yet sung the feedback song, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes in the future.
That's facts.
So, there's a few more comments. We've gotten some YouTube commentary. We uploaded the whole thing on YouTube, and then we also uploaded just the Chugga Conroy interview to make it easier for people to find it, and then connected that with the, linked people to the main podcast. So we've got a bunch of comments on that one, asking about the mysterious question of what is the A in Chugga A Conroy?
We got a lot of pretty decent responses to this.
Chugga Awkward Conroy is a solid one. That's a possibility. Malia, in fact, said that the A may be an Albus, so everyone has an opinion.
I see a Precious Bean from ZCram12.
Look, that video is still there. If you have thoughts on the A in Chugga A Conroy, you should still head over and give your opinion there.
Yep, or add us on Twitter with Cody, myself, and Chugga Conroy.
There was also a comment. Sadly, Chimroy let us know that unfortunately, the Cartoon Network website no longer has accounts, so there's no random name generator anymore, which is very sad.
Ah, upsetting.
Because that's how Chugga Conroy got his username, is when he was like 10 or whatever, he was like, I'm on CartoonNetwork.com. I'm going to go into the random name generator. Unfortunately, if you want to become a YouTube star, you're going to need something other than the Cartoon Network website to find a good name.
Well, heck. then I'm kind of SOL then, aren't I?
Yeah, well, I can come up with a username for you.
Okay, cool. We'll talk about that later. And then we got one other one from Robin McCormack asking for a top 10 final boss battles. I think I know someone for that. Hey, Brian, I think we got your new topic for you.
Yeah, no, if you have suggestions on what you want to see, or if you want to submit a segment, we do accept guest segments. So if you want to record something,
Yeah, hit us up.
feel free to let us know. We're always happy to accept suggestions. So again, if you wanted your feedback read out on here, what you need to do, you can send us an email at thepodcast@zeldauniverse.net. You can contact us we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and such.
Yeah, pretty much on most things, except TikTok, because screw TikTok.
Yeah, we're on everything except TikTok. I had conversations about that. I was like, do we need to be on TikTok? I'm not.
What even is TikTok? I still don't know.
I said, can a young person tell me what TikTok is? And I think we pinged like Hayden, because we were like, he's 16, he might know what TikTok is.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, is that like a clock? So he wasn't any help.
Peyton is never any help with that. I feel like even Realm would be a better help, and even then, I have high doubts that the answer is no. So if someone could send us an email to podcast@zeldauniverse.net and just explain to me and Cody what TikTok is, that would be great. Thank you.
So that's it for this episode of the ZUCast.
Yay!
So, Alex, where can people find you? What do you do on Zelda Universe?
So on Zelda Universe, I kind of do a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, but I also do some of the panels. So like PAX East. Hopefully this will be out by PAX East, but if it's not, hi, I'm at PAX East doing panels. But you can find me at Luca_Starks on Twitter and Instagram and Twitch, where I do a lot of different kind of streams. I do a lot of the Ocarina of Time randomizer, mostly because it's really cool, and I sometimes like torturing myself, which is also fun. And then you can also find me on YouTube. I'm not as active on YouTube anymore as I used to be, but I'm somewhat on there, but mostly on Twitch and Twitter, and occasionally Instagram, even though I'm trying to get that better. And then you can find me at alexrosenberg.net on all the other places. Cody, where can they find you on the internet?
Well, I have registered codydavies.com just in case, but I haven't created a website for it yet, so unfortunately you can't go there to find a hub for all of my social media.
I expect it to be just a site of just a gif of you just digging holes.
That is a good idea. So, I'm Cody Davies. I'm the community manager, I guess you could say. I'm in charge of, social media, the community, everything in that.
You kind of oversee everything.
I oversee everything that's not to do with,
Ops.
Writing the news and guides and, there's various other teams that aren't us, but...
You're more ops than everything else.
So, you can find me on Twitter at Magicody, that's Magicody. I am a famous viral celebrity there, you could say, because one of my tweets went viral once. The one about the Breath of the Wild Master Mode.
Yes, and it keeps going around, and he's also a Beauty and the Geek contestant, and he is also a councilman. This man on a council. Wow.
Look, I do a lot of things. That's why they call me the Jay-Z of Minecraft and or the Kramer of the internet.
The Jay-Z of Minecraft?
Yeah, no, that's what someone called me once in a YouTube comment, the Jay-Z of Minecraft. I think it's because I'm so good at singing.
Yeah, it's definitely that.
Yeah, so that's where you can find me. For the most part, you can just find me on Zelda Universe. But Twitter is where I have my personal feed there. So please rate and review. This is the segment of the show where we start talking about rating and reviewing. Recently, I did add our feed to Spotify as well, so we're gradually getting into all of these services. We are on iTunes and Google Play and our YouTube stuff and Spotify now and everything, and so if you can give us a review and everything, that also can count as feedback. If I see that someone's written a review, we can read that feedback out as well. It just helps us get better known.
Yep, and we're also on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud? Are we on SoundCloud?
Don't think we're currently on SoundCloud, but stay tuned. We do have a SoundCloud account.
Stay tuned. Maybe we'll do some stuff there.
we might do some stuff on SoundCloud, so that next time we go viral, we can be like, check out our SoundCloud, which, as I understand, is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, right? We can't, you're not truly a viral sensation if you don't have a SoundCloud.
Now it's time for the part that we've been foreshadowing this whole time. It's everyone's favorite segment.
Credits!
It's credits with Eslo's Spirit. I can't wait to find out who participated in this episode.
I know, it's gonna be such a cool thing. I wonder if Elias is in this episode. Do you think Elias is in this episode?
Well, if not, Elias Thompson, Twitch director at Zelda Universe, I'm giving you a shout out.
Yep.
So that you can be in this podcast.
Yep.
We believe in you, Elias.
Keep the faith. Good night, everybody. Goodbye. Good day. Whatever it is.
Good day, goodbye, good night, and good luck.
It's over! Let us now give thanks to the nerds who brought this ZUCast episode to life. The hosts were two wild and crazy kids named Alex Rosenberg and Cody Davies, respectively. Hebron Jacobo presented this episode's installment of Tingles Jingles on Easter eggs. Brian Thomas graced us with a list of items he'd most like to see make a comeback in future Zelda games. This month's ZU Community News was brought to you by the super team of The Zelda Ann and Realmwings. Randy Marr gave us another installment of Hyrule Away from Hyrule, with the most literal interpretation of the title yet. Realmwings popped in again to present his redundantly titled segment, Realm's Realm, starting a look back at overworlds and hub areas throughout the Zelda series. Cody interviewed Let's Player and Runaway Guys member ProtonJon in another edition of The Cody Zone. Special thanks to ProtonJon for not running away from Cody in fear. Furore must be on your side. My name is Eden Biskin, and I produce this podcast executively. I often consult our consulting producer, Cody Davies, whose favorite hobby is riding a Segway to AC/DC songs. Kelly Timmerman is our head editor, and she is still recovering from hosting the last episode. I cannot properly express just how sorry I am about that. Our public relations stuff is managed by Pietro Bucci, Megan Negrelli, and Mary Stowe. Joshua Lindquist is our technical advisor, while both he and Realmwings work the graphics magic for us. Elias Thompson is the ghost that haunts the ZUBC studio at night. He doesn't actually work on the podcast, but I figure he deserves another mention. The ZUCast is a production of the ZUBC, a division of Zelda Universe. Feedback is an undeniable source of life, and we'd appreciate it if you gave us some. Our email address is podcast@zeldauniverse.net. Please do not send us spam. If you're too cool for email, we also have a presence on the ZU forums in the Community Central Board's ZUcast 2018 Hub thread. And you can also leave us hate mail on ZU's social media at Zelda Universe. We're also on YouTube and Twitch at Zelda Universe TV. Do be aware that we might read your feedback and judge it on air in the next episode. And thank you for listening. As a reward, we'll have a new roundtable out in a couple weeks. You're welcome. Till then.
minutes ago.
Oh, God. What have I begun to start? That's not even words.
What have I begun to start to begin? To introduce.
Oh, Lord, help me.
In the original Legend of Zelda... Nope, try that again. Yes, I can hear you screaming through time at me that each Zelda has a unique art style. Now, I'm going to take that again.
Not all heroes wear capes. Some heroes literally just crack boys or head eggs on. I mean, like the ball and chain were just kind of useless outside of
Wow.
what's it? That mansion thing.
That's not very nice. She's there listening.
What?
That was a joke about your girlfriend.
It was a joke about commitment.
Oh, I didn't even hear it.
You said the ball and chain was useless, and he said, "Don't talk about her while she's there."
It's
okay, I got the joke. It went over Alex's head.
Did you see that BuzzFeed article, Cody, of the how many chugga chuggas do you do before a choo choo? How many do you chugga chugga before you choo choo?
I sent that straight to Chugga Conroy. I just messaged him.
Did you really? Of course you did. How did he respond?
Oh, well, he didn't give me a definitive answer, so... I mean, I guess it's just one chugga before a Conroy.
Right, but how many before a choo choo?
I mean, I feel like it's chugga, 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 choo choo. I think there's 4.
I can see that.
Look, you can have as many chuggas as you like, but there's only one Chugga Conroy. Speaking of Chugga Conroy, we're not interviewing him this month. If you want to see that, you should go to the previous episode.
Yes, go watch the next episode. Anyway, take it away, Realm.
Take it away.
Oh, God. Take it away, Realm, or whatever.
Whatever your name is.
Whatever. Who are you even?
Okay.
Can we redo that ending?
You can. Chugga, 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 Conroy.
Cody, you do very good interviews. That was a really good interview, and thanks to John for letting you deal with Cody things. I'm gonna redo that because that was bad. Da da ba ba da ba ba.